Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hammer Podcast. Today is February 13th, 2023, and I'm speaking with two people who need your help. All right, Peggy and Dennis Kowalczyk. Peggy and Dennis Kowalczyk are in a fight with the foster system here in the state of Wisconsin. And Peggy's going to come on in a little bit, but Dennis is going to let everybody know the situation. So, Dennis, you go right ahead.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep.
Well, it's our battle. It's kind of interesting because the family court has found its way into criminal court, and the problems from the family court are causing us real problems in the criminal court. And most of the allegations are all false. There's false information, false testimony. It's just a mess. But I wanted to give you a brief intro. My wife, well, first off, my wife, you gotta forgive me. I might shake a little bit, I might wiggle a little bit. My wife and I were victims of chemical contamination at a military installation. I
Okay.
got Parkinson's disease from the contamination. My wife got stage 2 rectal cancer
Oh,
from the contamination. I got 2 autoimmune diseases with the Parkinson. So we've been dealing with that. But basically, to just put it out there, our children, due to just a simple husband and wife spat, like everybody has that's married,
sure.
it's common. And due to that, we had 5 special needs children, and 3 of them were my wife's second cousins, and we had 2 boys of our own. And they were grabbed illegally on May 18th, 2018. My 2 boys were, we had a situation. We had moved to Alabama, but we had moved from Wisconsin to Alabama. So the Waukesha County courts were in our life for the 3 girls. I'm trying to make this as brief as possible for the 3 girls to give us guardianship. But anyways, we're moving down to Florida to be near my wife's family, which are all from northern Florida. And we were staying at the time in one of those extended stay places, and it was completely inadequate for all the children. We were well provided for in school in Alabama, enrolled. We were staying in the hotel just over the border till we had found a house. But all the kids were in school. I was enrolled in the VA healthcare system in Alabama. We had kids on Alabama Medicaid. Everything was tied in. We were legal residents. But through the course of the event of the argument that my wife and I had,
Mm-hmm.
CPS, someone got called in. I'm thinking it was because of the 5 special needs kids and me being a disabled person. But anyways, we wound up being forced. They split my wife and I up, and they forced me to take the children all the way back to Wisconsin, claiming they were still Wisconsin residents. And we lost like 3/4 of our things. It was all done within 12 hours from a marital spat.
Wow.
They had me take all 5 children. One, my youngest son was just a toddler at the time, and we were basically out on the street when we got up to Wisconsin. I had $200 in my pocket, and I had placed the girls with my niece temporarily, and the boys and I stayed at a friend of mine's house. But I only got about 4 or 5 days out of it. and I wound up signing the girls into temporary foster care. And then, due to a complaint from somebody that my youngest son, had a over wet diaper, and the person was worried that I wasn't going to feed the children lunch. That opened up having my other two boys. That statement took my other two boys into foster care. Moving ahead real quick, my oldest son got put in a abusive foster home, and it was his second one. And he got put in an abusive foster home, and he came out and told us about the abuse. We tried to hold people accountable, and through everything, they also had ordered a what I call a legal DNA test for my two sons. Uh, but my oldest son, I wound up, due to, I had no idea, but for 16 years I thought I was his biological father. He was on my Social Security, my my military retirement, everything. But due to us trying to hold people accountable and us causing a big stir in the family court, they took out an injunction and told us that we were nothing to him. They made him a ward of the state, and he went to another horrible, now what's called a bad behavioral group home in Appleton, Wisconsin.
Did they show you the the paperwork for the DNA test?
Yes, but I had not known. I signed a paternity acknowledgement after my son was born, claiming, and the birth mother at the time gave me full custody, because when you're when a child's born out of wedlock, if the mother has all the rights. The only thing the father has a right to is to pay child support.
Right.
So she gave full legal custody. We left the hospital with my son, and after birth, and we had him all the way till 16 years old. There was nobody claiming. This wasn't a claim for child support or another father standing up. That's only two reasons at that age they should even run a DNA test.
Right.
But they did it, like I said, to silence us. And when they placed him in the bad behavioral group home, he was, like I said, he was made a ward of the state. We were told that we couldn't have any information about him. We weren't allowed to give any information. So moving forward now, after give it about a year, when he was in, give me a minute. Sorry. My fault. I gotta plug in the power source. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
But yeah. So when he claimed abuse, he said that a foster boy, the foster home, was physically assaulting him, hurting him real bad. So we called for a well child check. Only thing we could do, because we were told that we had no rights to him, or we're nothing. We were told to basically walk away from my son of 16 years.
Well, he wasn't your biological son, but he was Peggy's biological son.
No,
Correct?
I'm sorry. At the time it was a different mother. Sorry.
Okay. That's all right.
It was
I
like,
just wanted to make sure.
yeah. But anyways, we found out that he was being abused in the group home. called the well child check. The only thing we could really do. And in return, Waukesha County filed for an injunction against us and forbidded us to have any contact with him for 2 years. So after about a year had went by, the oldest girl, third cousin of my wife's girls,
Hmm.
she was placed in Appleton, 2 hours away from her sisters in the system as well. They did the same thing to her that they did to her son because she was claiming bad things were happening with her. So they put her 2 hours away from her two sisters as well. But she had ran into her son, and we had talked to the oldest girl, and she told us that he was still suffering horribly. And my wife had, around the time that they did the injunction, she found out that she had cancer. And she spent the next year, first year of that injunction, fighting for her life. But she begged them, begged DCFS in Waukesha County. She begged them before she was going. She had to go through a 18-hour life threatening surgery to remove the tumor and her anus and her rectum. And they wouldn't even let her talk to either of my sons. She didn't know if that was the last time she was going to be on Earth. Because all she requested was to talk to them, and they wouldn't even let her talk to them. I wound up throughout all this being hospitalized 2 times, one for 6 months and one for a whole year, and placed in a nursing home temporarily from all this going on. But it's the best I can do. We talked earlier, Jason.
Hmm.
If people want to know the whole story, which is one incredible ride.
Yes, yes, it is. I did look at those podcasts you sent me. It's from I'm going to plug the podcast here. Newsforus.world. I'm going to go ahead and put those 3 links in the description. They're hours long. They're very, very detailed. So if you want to know a really detailed version of this story that's going on, or this travesty that's going on, I should say, with these 2 people, Dennis and Peggy, watch those videos. I mean, it goes into really, really detailed things as far as the paperwork, audio. He's got it all, and you can, yes, listen to the audio. You can see where they hang up on the girl that's trying to help Peggy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had a reporter from News for Us
Yeah.
help
Yeah.
us and assist us. We'll be going over a lot of that, but it all boils down to a heavy, extensive corruption in the family courts and the circuit courts. And it's all, like you said, on tape.
Yes.
They can be the judge. You be the judge. That's what I say tonight. We're going to show you everything. You be the judge out there.
And I should also add that as far as audio, paperwork, the stuff that you've sent me and sent News for Us, they try to suppress that kind of stuff. So it's always good to keep it somewhere else. You know what I mean? Where there's access to it.
Yeah, we have it in like 4 or 5 different hands.
Good.
Locked on the key. Because it was very difficult to get your hands on it when the corruption is really high up. It's hard to get evidence.
Yes. Now, I want to talk about lawyers. Peggy, when you went to family court, you had a lawyer, correct?
Oh, that's what you're talking about. What we talked about, that the Wisconsin state law basically
Right.
is preventing people from exercising their Sixth Amendment rights.
Right.
My wife and I, when we could probably look into that, because I'm going to start with the false arrest and incarceration, and that comes right around that time period.
Well, let me tell you this. While I was researching some of this stuff, I talked to somebody, I'm not
Okay.
going to mention their names, but they had been in the system, okay? And I asked them, I said, when you went to court, did they offer you a public defender? And this person was making about 80 grand a year, and they offered him a public defender.
Really?
Yes, he didn't take it because he didn't need it, but
Yeah.
they
I don't
offered
want.
him a public defender.
It's unbelievable.
It even says when they arrest you, you have the right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney.
Correct.
I mean, they spell it out right there, and then they
Well,
don't.
when I called when I
Go ahead.
called the courthouse, they had told me they read off the Wisconsin state statute that says there's a income restriction on public defenders. Well, my wife and I, when we got out of being incarcerated, were both immediately given, never asked any financial background, nothing. We were automatically given a public defender each for our situation. I carried mine all the way up till they forced me to take a plea deal for the best interest of my family. But when my wife, she took a public defender up till about it after the first year. This is dragged now out for 2 years, our legal situation, over 2 years now. But she went up to about a year. Then we spent our life savings hiring an attorney out of Madison, which I'm not ashamed to say we filed a complaint. His name was Preston Smeeds out of Madison, the top criminal defense lawyer. But we spent our life savings on it, and he, for 2 years, or I'm sorry, about a year and a half, bounced the case, just letting it float. He got one plea offer, initial plea offer from the DA. Was going to take her to trial 2 times without doing any pre-trial preparation. No interrogatories, no depositions, no witness list, nothing. And luckily, it was delayed, but both times he was going to take her to trial without that. But anyways, after she wound up firing him, my wife put in for a public defender. They told her no. You can't have a public defender. Your husband makes too much money. We're like, you never asked us. And she read off my income, and she only read off my Social Security income. And I never was questioned. At the time, I was in the hospital for a full year, the first year of our criminal stuff.
Hmm.
Never was questioned about income or anything, and neither was she. But yeah, now she's forced to defend herself in a 22-year possible sentence. So, but anyways, I don't want. I know we only got an hour, and I wanted to this on a
Right.
roll. But thank you for bringing that up because I really looked. I was angry when I first heard it, not only for my wife but for other people. Regardless of what you make monthly, most people, unless if you're rich, you don't have the assets to liquidate to do these $20,000, $40,000 retainers,
Right.
and
It's a lot of
people
money.
get stuck. And although they say, well, there's some attorneys that'll do payment plans. No, I called around, and it's very difficult. They won't touch you unless you got 10 to 20 grand up front.
Yeah.
So it's like I
Very
said,
very expensive. So, you have some documents you want to show us? What are we looking at here? Your arrest.
on 12/7/2020,
Uh-huh.
it was, they'd have to bring it up. Remember when I said after the first year, my wife had went up to just get a glimpse of my son in October of 2020, just to see if we can have any contact with him. But she went to just try to get a visual to make sure he was okay, because we found out he was really suffering bad.
Uh-huh.
We found out he had been mentally hospitalized, hospitalized in a psych ward 4 times
Oh,
in psych holds
I'll bring that up a
from
little
the
bit so
trauma
people
experience.
can see it.
So my wife decided at the time, my son and her talked, and she told my, they both agreed that we were gonna take them to safety. Because we've tried at that time, we tried every police, 3 different police departments, special victims units, advocacy agencies, disability rights of Wisconsin. We tried everything, and we got the same old story. Oh, that's terrible. That's not what we do here. We even called up the governor's office. They couldn't help. Senator. So my wife they decided to take them to safety. At the time, we were living in a military installation in Mississippi on a
Mm-hmm.
VA housing program. We were getting it ready for when my son aged out of the system. And our younger son, we passed the interstate compact to bring him home. So at that time, my wife and him left Wisconsin, and we agreed to take him to safety, take him into a police department and social services in the town where he was born, because they had all the information that Wisconsin refused to order. But we didn't make it that far. I put trust in the NCIS and Naval Base, being a fellow veteran, that they would help us. We were wrong. But, anyways, after that October, going into that December,
Uh huh.
nothing had occurred. But we got arrested on December 7th on federal kidnapping charges on the military installation. And we were never shown a warrant, never read our rights, or never, no mug shots taken, no fingerprinting. But we were told that we were being taken in. They took us to a federal holding facility, which, by the way, was worse than a third world country.
Wow.
But anyways, they arrested us on the military installation, handed us over to the police, and they took us into town, off the post, into a federal holding facility until awaiting extradition. Both my wife and I were forced to sign extradition papers. Not allowed to answer for any of the charges, nothing. We were just being held there, we were told. So they cut my medications almost completely off. My Parkinson's, I had a special pump going to my small intestines. It
Yep.
made me get rid of it, took me off of like 4 of my other medications. And I was a mess. We were held there for 23 days.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, they tried to expedite me one time. The U.S. Marshals supposedly came in the middle of the night. They left me sitting in a wheelchair. My Parkinson's was so bad I couldn't move. I had urinated and defecated numerous times. So I was sitting in soiled linen in a wheelchair, unable to move. And the U.S. Marshals came in at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and they said, "Come on, get up, let's go." And I said, "I need help. I can't move." They said, "No, get up. You're leaving." And she started to get more and more irate. But I tried telling them that they cut my medications and I wasn't able to move. I wasn't saying that I couldn't go. I needed help. They
Right.
would not. And it didn't occur to me later that that was a big key. But finally, she got upset. She said, "You just bought yourself another 6 months." And
Oh man.
she left. And later on, I put it together. There was never a federal warrant for our arrest. It was all because when the U.S. Marshals come to get you, you're going kicking, screaming, yelling, and they couldn't lay their hands on me. They needed me to go freely. It had to be by my choice. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
If
I
you look now to back this up, 12/7/2020, case was initiated. which was a lie. The DA didn't file charges against us till April of 2020, 2021. But it says then there was arrest warrant authorized, a arrest warrant issued. Now scroll up. Now that's on 12/7. You scroll up, 12/30, right down below it, where the your arrow is.
Uh huh.
Warrant habeas committed, served. So there's no record of us being on an extradition order. There's no record of us being in any incarceration.
Oh.
But at 12:30, they let us. We had to attend a virtual hearing. They brought us to a virtual hearing.
Uh huh.
The judge issued signature bonds for both of us. Never stated the charges or anything. So when we left, we walked. They just let us go after being arrested for federal kidnapping charges and awaiting extradition. They just let us walk out through the front door, not signing anything or ever seeing a signature bond. My wife, it's been like over 2 years, never once was made to sign her signature bond, or it wasn't even brought up. Me, I had to sign mine, but I didn't sign mine until April of 2021. When the
Oh.
DA finally, the judge forced me to sign mine, saying that that's when the DA officially filed charges. So we were arrested on federal kidnapping charges without the DA ever filing for charges till April.
Yeah, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Well, they did, and like I said, we're in no federal database system anywhere. There's no showing us for any charges or warrants issued, nothing.
Right.
But we have professionals look it up, and there's no record on the public record at all. It made it seem like the arrest warrant was served on December 7th. They tracked us down and arrested us and brought us into court on the 30th. Because that's the time gap in between the issuing of the warrant and our arrest or our presence in court. So there's nothing in between there, and there's no record. Yes, a KPS can be used for extradition, but there should be some statement saying that we were in Mississippi arrested on federal kidnapping charges, at least,
Right.
and showing that we were incarcerated for 23 days.
Did they
And that,
tell you that you were being arrested for
yes, they announced
kidnapping
as
charges?
federal. And here's the cool thing. Now, I don't know how quickly you can bring it up, but I sent you the mugshots. Only proof that we have
Mm-hmm.
of us being underneath federal charges,
Yeah. Let me get that up here. Let's see here.
because
Stop presenting that.
when we looked it up on the internet,
Uh huh.
it said federal kidnapping charges. When we got home, being released from prison, we looked it up. Federal kidnapping. 2 days later, those charges disappeared, and
Oh.
new ones popped up saying state child abduction charges. But my wife's mugshot is only evidence that we really have positively to prove that we were being held underneath a federal warrant. Her prison uniform is a color for federal inmates. It's color red and white. If you look it
Right.
up on the internet, it's a federal. It's an outfit's only worn for real bad felony and federal cases. So when you look at her prison uniform, it comes up as federal. Mine, they didn't get my mug shot until they were telling me to go home.
Right.
And they changed me into my civilian clothes, took a shitty mug shot that showed half my face.
Let me
There's
uh,
another.
let me share hers here real quick. Let's see here. All right. There we go.
There it is, white and red.
Yep.
That's the federal prison uniform. Now, what make mine and hers even more interesting, if you look at the bottom there, it says child abduction at the bottom of hers. Go to my mugshot once. I was
Oh.
arrested. I was arrested underneath Mississippi statute. I was arrested in by Mississippi. I was charged underneath Mississippi law. If you open that, if you see in the lower left-hand corner, there's a code, and it says
Yeah.
97-3-53. If you look that up on the internet, it's a Mississippi child abduction code. Now look to the right.
Status. Charge dismissed.
So I've been charged under double jeopardy. I was already charged in Mississippi with the charges dropped, and I was recharged in Wisconsin for the same offense. So there's that's a Mississippi law, code law, but my wife's says child abduction, but she's sitting there in a red uniform for federal kidnapping.
Right.
It all doesn't add up. I tried calling Mississippi, and they won't divulge. The naval base threatened me by bugging again. The naval base is a whole different story. If people go back on that News for Us, it has a whole explanation of that one. That's a whole show inside itself.
Right. Yes. It's
But
it's really really detailed. I'll give him that. He did a
the only
thorough
thing I
job.
will, the only thing I will bring up to you is they have all the dates and the times wrong on the cameras for the NCIS. And they claimed it was a voluntary questioning, wound up being an interrogation where they deprived me of my medications for my Parkinson's and food and water for like almost 6 hours.
Wow.
But there's on both of our tapes the dates, and the times wrong, and the whole hour out of my quote questioning / interrogation is missing. They took it completely out. And the guy who does the show for News for Us, he's a professional, and there's one more show coming out where he'll show that those tapes were altered. He showed the signs the other night on the show. The tapes were altered. So
now I know that I can't remember the girl's name who works with. I think his name is Steve, right?
Yeah. Gentleman who owns it, Steve, and the reporter is Crystal.
Crystal. She said she was going to be there at the trial, doing audio or.
Well, we got people going to the trial, and I wanted to get it out there. Stephen was working on a promo that they're going to be pushing out for the rest of the week to get people to come to the trial and show up for the rally. But we intend on trying to get it streamed over on air live. So we're going to try to get it streamed live. And that's why I was talking to you the other day about it. And I was talking with Steven. I was going to have you two get together and see if we can make that happen. I'm hoping. We just filed a complaint with the chief judge of Outagamie County. And I'm hoping that she sees this for what it is. It's a very detailed report we sent her because they stopped my wife's pretrial conference, which was her only chance to argue the discovery and to get witness lists and everything. They prevented her now from going to jury selection, even though she's pro se and having to represent herself. She was not allowed to go to jury selection. And then,
that's strange. Usually the lawyers, if she's acting as her own attorney, she should be able to go.
Correct. And they told her the reason why her pretrial conference got canceled, and we got it on phone recording. The secretary for the judge stated right on phone recording that the reason why she didn't have a pretrial conference is because she didn't have a lawyer. And that's again illegal. And then she stumbles up again and tells my wife before she said that, we got her on recording saying that they already had the pretrial conference and she wasn't invited. They proceeded without her. But right before the pretrial conference, we had sent in an affidavit of my wife's statements, and we sent in a whole affidavit. It was 38 pages long of all lies and false testimony, and that's tainted the whole discovery. And we asked for an extension from the judge. We provided the proof along with it, and all the proof was sitting right in discovery. Everything in discovery contradicts itself. So all the discovery was tainted. My wife submitted that. The DA officially moved to seal the record, seal her affidavit, and prevent it from going to court, being allowed to be used in court. That happened right before the pretrial conference was canceled. The DA successfully sealed my wife's affidavit statement to bring up all those lies.
Was that the conference that was supposed to be virtual?
Yes, that's what I think. What I think the judge's secretary said. They had the pretrial without my wife impressed on. But she's to the point now. She's scared as all heck going to court because everything's tainted. Everything, she's been robbed of the pretrial conference. She hasn't. The DA refused now for 2 months to give her a witness list so she could adequately prepare for trial. And all this stuff's going against her walking in 7 days from now into a hearing that could dramatically affect her life for the next 22 years.
I'm smelling a rat.
Oh, there's a few big ones.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, both courts should have been separate, but all the lies and propaganda and crap that plagued us, the defamation from the family court, was brought in several spots. If people watch the police videos, it'll tell the whole tale that the social workers from Waukesha County tainted our criminal stuff. They teamed up with several individuals, 3 Appleton police officers, and to the foster parents at the group home. They teamed up with them and brought all the family court trash and defamation into our criminal court. So it's all tainted up into discovery. It has it on it has that Waukesha County, when that DNA test was found on my son, we provided evidence that he was placed through social services in Alachua County, Florida with us. We had all of our legal paperwork handed to them. They turned around and said that we provided no paperwork in the criminal complaint. They made it seem like, because my wife and I originally were charged with stranger child abduction, which means we had no relationship with the victim that we attempted to abduct.
Right.
Which carries a significant more prison time and sentencing.
I'm beginning to think that's why they took the DNA test, because
Correct.
If the child was not yours, then they would consider it kidnapping.
Correct. They played that. They took it out of the family court and put it in with the criminal stuff.
Slick.
This is, and I'm not afraid because my crap's over with, but St. A's out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, has monopolized the whole state. They own the majority of the group homes and foster homes. And we were complaining and really getting it public that our son had been abused severely in 2 of their homes. And I'm thinking that's what, because if you listen and you watch the shows, several times they bring up the people on the cameras were stating there's a lot of high up people in this. It's been stated 3 times on police videos and other places in the investigation. So there is a lot of high up people in there.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can. Otherwise than that, is the usual claims of financial gain because of the money involved with fostering.
Sure. Plus, there's a lot of money in sending people to prison too.
Yep. So that's kind of like this. That sums it up pretty good.
Man, I mean,
I'm
just
happy that.
and in my own
And my son,
in my own state, I'm
hey,
shocked and saddened.
I'm from Wisconsin, grew up there. Even though my wife and I, we pretty much lived down south for our 25 years of marriage, but was very proud to be from Wisconsin. And this has drastically affected everything. I mean, I wound up, they went from, and that tells you a story too. With me, they wound up, that's the other thing. They're trying to hit my wife for attempted abduction. My son has been so messed up and traumatized, which I had other evidence I was going to show, but I can just tell it quick. My son, when he went into foster care, he had to take the intake physical where they did everything on him and evaluated him. He was deemed healthy and mentally sound going into foster care. Now, 5 years later, being made a ward of the state, he's been hospitalized mentally 4 times. He's on antipsychotic medications. He's autistic. So he's uh, he he's a literal mess. He was diagnosed. He became a cutter. Started cutting himself while he was in foster care. Deemed suicidal by a mental health therapist. Deemed to have manic depression and anxiety disorders, all from just being 5 years in the system. And the proof's there. He was sound going in, coming out. He's a complete mess.
Yeah.
But
This is
but yeah,
this is Dylan, right?
yes.
Dylan, yeah.
And he now also became
Gen-
transgender,
yes.
and that he now goes by the name of Iris. But we've been fighting. I've been fighting for 2 years. They dragged the criminal case out and just stretched it out there so they could get him at 18. They have a legal guardian supposedly over him, overlooking him. So I just got my judge at my sentencing to drop the no contact order so I can pursue contacting him. But my wife still has a no contact order. This has been forever, and he only has heard nothing but the lies and the deceit this whole time. But yeah,
Wow. Man, that's oh my goodness. I don't understand. I mean, from what I heard when I was listening to the other podcast, Steve was saying something about this has happened to other couples as well.
oh, it's an epidemic.
Yeah.
If you stand up, first of all, and I hate to cover this because you could have one heck of a show, which we can do later. I can explain my wife and I during the 2 years that we have been dragged out in criminal court. We turned around and made good of what we learned fighting with CPS and the foster system, and we helped other families in similar circumstances. We advocated for other families because there is a massive injustice. I'm not saying all foster care is bad, but ever since 1997, when Bill Clinton signed in the Safe Adoption and Safe Families Act, it generated, which what was meant to be good, because we had an overflow at the time of foster kids needing homes. So this act that Bill Clinton signed gave financial incentives to the social services to get kids adopted, so they get bonuses.
Oh,
The judge, every adoption now that a kid has, every adoption, the judge gets $100,000 bonus. Social workers get anywhere between 5 and 10 grand, depending if the kid has special needs or if it's a regular one. So they're taking kids on a massive scale. Every 2 minutes, the child is abducted into the, well, I call it abducted, but a child enters the foster system, gets taken into foster system every 2 minutes in America. There's 675,000 children nationwide in foster care. Now you look at that and you say, oh my God, 675,000. Why is this going under the radar? Because there's 73 million children in the United States. So you look at that 675,000 in comparison to 73 million. That's how it's going through.
Yeah.
The social services is double dipping in federal funding. They get 30 billion a year in federal funding. And they turn around and they charge parents child support for their children that are in foster care that they're receiving federal funding for to take care of. So they drain the parents financially so they can't get decent legal representation. And they drain them so they lose their jobs, they're financially unable to support. And next thing you know, you're being TPR.
Right. A similar thing, actually, Dennis, actually happened to me. This was probably 15 years ago. I was at work. My boss calls me into the office and says, "We got a letter for you from the DHS or whatever." I'm like, "Okay." And I have two children, and they were living with me. My wife, we're still married. We've been married almost 30 years. You know, the
Yeah.
children have lived with us their whole life, or
Yeah.
till 18. And I get this letter. It says that I'm behind on child support for my kids. Wait a minute. My kids are living with me. How can I pay child support? You know? So we cleared it up. But I mean, yeah, stuff happens, man. You know?
It's just crazy. But it is a whole underground world, and people call it conspiracy and stuff, but no, it's very real.
It's all about the
And it
money.
usually, as it usually only happens to parents. Like in our position, only happens when parents retaliate, when they stand up for themselves. They say, no, this isn't right. This is wrong. Our kids were illegally took. We never had a fact-finding hearing on either of my boys or the girls. There was no fact-finding to prove our innocence. They just moved us right to reunification, took my son made him a ward of the state. My younger son, we had to battle through reunification, which they call the reunification process.
So
But
it basically seems like anybody who fights back or bucks the system, they put the full force of the judicial system on them, no matter what they have to do, whether it's covering up, uh, you know,
yes, I mean,
falsifying documents, whatever.
the top two supervisors in Waukesha County DCFS had the evidence. We put the evidence right in front of their face. It's sitting right in front of them. And they still filed reports that the abuse never happened.
Wow.
So it's a bad situation, but it's all over. I can honestly tell you 2 years advocating for families. I had advocated in every state except Hawaii. And there's a lot of states where Pennsylvania is a gigantic problem right now. That's all over the news. But it's just terrible.
Now,
It's,
when is her court date?
it's 7 days from now,
7
February
days.
21st and 22nd. We're asking anybody out there that lives in the local area to come and rally for her and be there, because I'm currently on probation in Alabama, and my health is so bad that I can't go with her. So she's on her own. We got a couple. We don't know. We've asked two family members. That's the other thing is we got back to Wisconsin with all this children, when they forced me to come back homeless, my family refused to help us. So it turns out they were actually working with CPS.
CPS, yeah. That
So
is, yeah, that's That is a sad situation.
But yeah,
But
anyway,
yes, I'm going to share this all over social media. I'm going to talk with some people, and we're going to get this out there. And like I said, you have
thank
another podcast with news for us coming up.
yeah, we got one more coming up, which is the last one, and it will finish. That's where Steven, the guy who does the show, he'll show the viewing audience exactly how the tapes by NCIS were doctored, and he'll show he's got 3, 4 different things that he can point out. The tapes were actually doctored and adjusted,
Okay.
and we'll finish up with the rest of the evidence. We had 4 podcasts because this is a 5-year situation, and all throughout it is it's got everything that any good drama victim series would have.
Yeah.
But yes, it's a gigantic. So we had to cut it into parts.
Right.
And my wife gives a very good interview in one of them too, that tells the mental pain and suffering that a parent goes through with forced child separation. The parents that have their kids taken into the foster system, day one start suffering from post-traumatic stress. And there's detailed evidence that children 3 years old and younger suffer catastrophic developmental problems in their development from forced parent-child separation.
Right.
So she gives a good interview with that. People can check that out.
Like I said, when you do that podcast, make sure you send me the link so I can put it in with the other links.
Thank you.
And talk to Steve about this podcast. That way, he can share it as well with his audience, and I'll share his stuff with my audience.
Definitely.
So
I appreciate everything. Sorry we ran into so much technical
that's okay.
difficulty.
That's okay. That's what editing's for. We got it, man. We got it. Just tell Peggy we're rooting for her. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
She's in our thoughts.
Thank you.
She'll get through this. I'm pretty sure. I mean, with the evidence. Oh, one more thing I was going to ask. When I was looking up the thing about the public defender, I was looking at this law firm, and they had some tips on public defenders, and it says if you can't get one, you could petition the court to reconsider their decision. Did she? Yeah. I mean, just.
No, we were flat out told from I guess there's a lady that handles it through Allegheny Courthouse. We were flat out told that I make too much per month.
Well.
And we were over and we told her it's like I've had a public defender the whole time.
Well, it might be worth a shot. You never know. You know what I mean?
So we'll put in another one.
Right.
They said we had to move quickly and put in that complaint to the chief judge, and do some last-ditch efforts to get this either extended to get us some time, because it's just a total unfair trial. It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Wait.
All right, Dennis.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, and good luck on that. Like I said, we're in your corner, man. You know.
Well,
so
it makes me feel good that I'm talking to a person in Wisconsin. I'm not crying over.
I'm like 20 minutes away from Appleton, maybe less than that. So, yeah.
No, yeah, February 21st and 22nd at 8. They scheduled it conveniently at 8 a.m. in the morning. It's their trial.
All right.
So anybody that can make it out there to help her, at least be in her corner, so she feels like she's got some family there and stuff, would be awesome.
Right.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
God bless everybody.
Yep.
Thank you.
Dennis, don't hang up yet, okay? I'm going to end the podcast, but don't hang up.
Okay.
Like I said, everybody that's watching, if you can help any kind of way, get a hold of me or get a hold of. Is it okay if I put your email out, Dennis?
No problem. You
Okay.
can put my phone number.
Well,
Yeah,
we'll put your email out. I don't want
That's
in case there's trolls or whatever. We don't want to that kind of stuff. You never know.
You're already underneath
Yeah.
Facebook attack with the other
So,
platforms.
like I said, we're gonna follow up with this. He's gonna send me some links, and we might talk some more.
Okay,
So yeah, we'll keep in touch, Dennis. Okay.
definitely.
So like I said, don't hang up. For the Hammer Podcast, I'm Jason. You take care of yourself. You take care of each other, and we'll see you in the next podcast. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.